Hi everyone, welcome to LangLitEdu. Today I'm going to talk about post-colonialism. Post-colonial theory, writings, writers and post-colonial terms are often confusing. At the same time, it's very significant for your exams. And in this video, I'm going to discuss a few questions. What is post-colonialism and who are the major theorists, writings and the post-colonial terms? And let's see the important questions. Before moving on to post-colonialism, let's begin with colonialism and imperialism. So first we can discuss what is colonialism. Colonialism comes from the word colonia, which means to settle in a foreign land, and it's a practice of domination. The expansion of European power in non-European such as Asian, African, South American, Australian spaces. They violently exploited native races and spaces. So next we have imperialism, and differentiating colonialism and imperialism is difficult because both of them relies on domination. Imperialism is more of the ideological mindset, or we can say it's a theory or a policy. Imperialism comes from the word imperium, which means supreme power, sovereignty, or simply rule of a strong country over a weak country, and the Western powers controls the activities. It can be financial, political, military and cultural. And the colonial practice of domination continues without the actual settlement of the dominating masters. Next, we are moving on to post-colonialism. The term post-colonial itself is in considerable debate. It suggests after the colonial, the end of domination by the European countries and the post-independent period of formerly colonized nations. It refers to the historical, material and actual living condition of newly independent Asian, African and South American states within the global system. In the seminal study, The Empire Writes Back, Theory and Practice in Post-Colonial Literature, Bill Ashcroft, Garrett Griffiths and Helen Tiffin refers post-colonialism as all culture affected by the imperial process from the moment of colonization to the present day. So let's discuss post-colonial terms and writings. There are several post-colonial terms, and in this video I have included the most important terms. And post-colonial writings are the writings by people from formerly colonized countries. Through these writings that the colonized people assert their difference, resistance and negotiation with European colonial masters. The issues addressed by post-colonial writings and writers vary in accordance with the local situation which each of them faced. Hence, we can never have a uniform post-colonial theory. Let's begin with the most influential post-colonial theorist, Edward Said, a Palestinian-American academic, political activist, literary critic and professor of literature who inaugurated the post-colonial field with his Orientalism in 1978. Said criticized a set of beliefs or representation of the East by the West. It reveals the connection between the process of the production of knowledge and power. Said's landmark, Culture and Imperialism, explains colonial control as well as indigenous resistance. And next we have Gayathri Chakravarthy Spivach, an Indian scholar, feminist critic, cultural and literary theorist, and she translated Derrida's of grammatology. Her post-colonial critique brings together a selection of interviews and discussions in which she addresses a vast range of political issues. Can the Subaltern speak? Spivach analyzes the very structure of colonialism, where the subaltern cannot speak for herself because the double mind of patriarchy and colonialism silenced her. Homi Bhabha, another most important figure of post-colonial studies.
an Indian scholar and critical theorist who has developed a number of key concepts. And Bhabha developed the notion of mimicry in the essay of Mimicry and Man, the Ambivalence of Colonial Discourse. And according to him, the colonizer can construct his identity only through the stereotypes of the identity of the colonial master. And this concept of mimicry is the fractured nature of the colonial condition. And another key term that he used is hybridity. His concept of hybridity is to describe the construction of culture and identity. Bhabha views culture is characterized by change and it is not fixed in time and space. And it shows how history and culture constantly intrudes on the present, and the relation between colonizer and the colonized stresses their interdependence and mutual construction of their subjectivity. And to him, pure, uncontaminated culture is a myth or an illusion. Frants Fanon, another important critic of post-colonial studies, a Francophone psychiatrist of Caribbean descent. Francophone, which means literature written in French by people who read, write and speak French outside France. And he was an activist in Algerian National Liberation Front. And his writings include his participation in the Algerian struggle against French colonialism. His book, A Dying Colonialism, which published in the year 1959, describes the cause of Algerian independence. And his other major works are Black Skin and White Mask. The book is written in the style of auto-theory in which Fanon shares his own experience. So another influential book is The Wretched of the Earth. The book is translated by Constance Farrington and its preface is written by Rand Paul Sartre. It's a masterpiece of anti-colonial struggle and a brilliant analysis of the psychology of the colonized and their path to liberation. The book had major influence on civil rights, anti-colonialism, and Black consciousness movements around the world. Let's discuss the major post-colonial terms. The first one is Black Atlantic. It's a term coined by the cultural theorist Paul Gilroy, and it's a general name for interconnected Black culture of Africa, Europe, and America. And Black Atlantic culture is hybrid and modern, and for them, racial and cultural identities are constantly changing. And the next one is Black Power movement. Stokely Carmichael used the term Black Power as social and racial slogan, and the influential text is Black Power, the Politics of Liberation. They identified strongly with colonized non-white people around the world, and they see themselves as a new force or third world. And next one is Black Consciousness. Stephen Bundu Biko was an anti-apartheid activist from South Africa, founded the Black Consciousness movement. And Black is beautiful as a slogan appeared in the writings of Steve Biko. Black consciousness really began with the shock of the discovery that one was not only black but was also non-white. And Black consciousness movement attacked the traditional white values and reassessed African culture. Another important term is Negritude. It's a framework of literary theory developed mainly by Francophone African poets. The movement was founded by Aimé Césaire, Léopold Sonko, and Leon Dumas. The term Negritude was coined by Aimé Césaire, and Negritude became an African dignity to revive and restore the black man's culture. Next is Subaltern Studies. The term subaltern is taken from Antonio Gramsci's prison notebooks. Subaltern euphemistically stands for proletariat, and it's a group of oppressed peasantry, mill workers, women, Dalit, etc. And subaltern history is a history from below. And Dalit writing represents the best example of subaltern representation. Dalit writers are Om Prakash Valmiki, Bama Lakshman, Meena Kandasamy, etc. And Creolization is the next term. The term Creole refers to bring up or to raise. It denotes the language that have developed during the process of colonization. Next is tricontinentalism. Robert Young proposes this term for post-colonialism to suggest the commonality between Asia, Africa, and South America. He argues that colonialism has not fully disappeared and post-colonialism does not make much sense. Next is decolonization. The word decolonization was first coined by the German economist Moritz Julius Born in 1930 to describe former colonies that achieved self-governance. It's a process by which the colonies become independent of the colonizing country and they seek freedom to rejuvenate and revive native forms of knowledge and freedom from colonial forms of thinking. For example, the Kenyan novelist and post-colonial theorist Ngugi wa Thiong'o returned to Gikuyu as part of decolonization. His collection of essays Decolonizing the Mind, he argued that English language is responsible for the ruin of African language. Next is decanonization. It involves rewriting a text or a novel from an anti-colonial perspective, and it identifies the representation of non-European cultures in European literary text. The process involves rereading literature for colonial or imperial theme. So let's see certain examples. Rereading of Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe and Shakespeare's The Tempest. Jean Rice's Wide Sargasso Sea is an anti-colonial response to Charlotte Bronte's novel Jane Eyre, and George Lamming retells the story of Prospero and Caliban in Water with Berries. Let's discuss a few more very important questions. The first one is, who coined the term nation language? It is Edward Camus Brathwaite, one of the major voices in the Caribbean literary canon. Next one, George Lamming's In the Castle of My Skin is an account of colonial rule, racism, slavery, and suffering. And it is his first novel, and Lamming uses the growth and education of G, his hero. In which work Wal Soyinka examines the role of the artist in the light of Yoruba mythology and symbolism? The answer is Myth, Literature and African World, published in the year 1976. And Wal Soyinka is the first African who won the Nobel Prize for literature, and Yoruba is the language spoken most prominently in southwestern Nigeria. Next one, who is the author of the famous line, "In your presence I rediscovered your name"? The answer is David Diop, a French West African poet of the 1950s and who is known for his contribution to the Negritude literary movement. And his another well-famous poem is Africa, My Africa. The Black Art movement was started in 1965 by Amiri Baraka, an American writer, and his original name is Leroy Jones. Next one, who is the author of the book Manichaean Aesthetics, Politics of Literature in Colonial Africa? That is Abdul Jan Muhammad. Next one, who is the author of the essay The Colonizer and Colonized? The answer is Albert Memmi, a French-Tunisian writer and essayist. Next question, the famous opening line of Rudyard Kipling's The Ballad of East and West is, "East is East, West is West, and never the twain shall meet." Next question, which writer asserted that Commonwealth literature does not exist? The answer is Salman Rushdie, and Commonwealth literature means the works from territories that were once part of the British Empire. Next one, who is the author of the book Judhan, A Dalit Life? Om Prakash Valmiki, and he recounts his experience where people considered him as Brahmin by his name. Next one, imagined community, is a concept developed by Benedict Anderson in his book Imagined Communities, Reflections on the Origin and Spread of Nationalism, published in the year 1983.
And here ends the video. I hope you have noted down all the important questions in your notebook. See you soon with yet another video. Thank you.